Welcome to She Sells Radio. I am so excited for the conversation I'm about to have today with one of my dear friends, clients, just incredible guy all around. And I'm going to tell you more about him in a minute. But I wanted to give a little bit of context for the show first, and also just give you a heads up. There's very likely going to be adult language in this particular episode. So if that's not your thing, I totally respect it. Now is probably the time to switch to another episode, but I want to really invite you to stay tuned because I already know because of who this person is, this is probably one of the most important conversations I'm going to have and that you're going to be able to listen in on as well. And so why I'm so excited about this conversation, the members of this community are up to really big things in the world. And this is something that I see and I admire so much in my clients and in our listeners and in the She Sells community is that when someone becomes a part of this community, they're going after big dreams and they're taking risks that they maybe haven't been bold enough to take in the past. And they're showing up in bigger ways than they ever have before in their lives. And I always joke with my clients that there should be a warning label attached to getting involved in the She Sells world before you start this work, that things are going to change in your life and they will ultimately all change for the better. But at the beginning, it can feel chaotic and it can feel uncomfortable because when we decide to really go for it and we decide we're unavailable to play small and to keep living in these limiting stories and mindsets we've been telling ourselves and, not have the life we want, everything that is not in alignment with that next level version of your life is going to fall away. And if you don't know what's happening, if you don't know that everything is falling away so it can fall together for you, it can be worrisome. And it always comes together beautifully, but it's that transitional period that can feel really challenging. And so my guest today on the show, Danny Bader, literally wrote a book on this topic called Taking the Shit Out of the Show, 7 short stories of how to navigate life's challenges. And Danny is a best-selling author. He's a keynote speaker. He's a mentor. He's an incredible coach. He's a dad, a husband, and he's no stranger to challenges either. And if you want to go way back in the She Sells archives, you can listen to the conversation I had with him on episode 47 of the podcast, where he shares about his near-death experience. It's a really powerful conversation. It changed my life. And I'd encourage you to go back and listen. But he talks about the challenges that ensued after that and how that shaped him. And he's a really rare blend of being extremely heartfelt, direct, and also hilariously funny at times, which we have to be when we're navigating life's challenges and transitions. So with that, Danny, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you, Elyse. It's great to be here. And I certainly like listening to the show. There's always some good conversation and some good insight.
Well, I think we're going to do that today as well, my friend. So tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write this book.
I had book number 4 in my mind and I thought, okay, what am I going to do with this? And in our world, you and I, in our coaching, it just seemed like I kept hearing this, like, everybody is having some struggles and everybody's having some shit shows in their life. And then I realized that they were, we all had them, even though they had a different flavor to them. And I thought, what if I wrote a book about, people dealing with their shit shows, those times of uncertainty and struggle and pain and regret and all of that. And I did it from a couple of different avenues, a couple of different situations. So that's when it started to come together. And I really like the idea for me of making up, different characters versus in my other books, you got a set of characters and you follow them all the way through. So then as it started to take shape and Sue, my wonderful editor, we have somebody in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, all dealing with some type of issue in life. Mm-hmm. And what I tried to do, or what I worked to do, was to have just that kind of that one message in each one that many of us feel. And they go, okay, I can relate to that. I'm not, my spouse didn't have an affair and, I'm getting a nasty divorce. Although the message in here also relates to kind of what I'm dealing with over here. Mm-hmm. So that's where the kind of idea came from.
Yeah, for sure. And I think right now, obviously, as we record this, and really any time in history, right, there's different challenges that we're going through as a collective, and then there's different challenges that we go through in our own lives that are really required to mold and shape us into our next version of ourselves. And that's one way I've learned to really think about it. I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on this is
Mhm.
when we decide that we're ready for more, that we want to allow in more in our life, whatever that more is. It could be more financial abundance, it could be more opportunities, it could be more love.
Mhm.
You're going to be required to become a different person in order to have that in a sustainable way.
Right.
Um, and in order to do that, those challenges come to shape us. And it's easy to say on the back end, well, that was happening for me. When it's happening, it usually doesn't feel like it's happening for you.
Right.
But what's your perspective on that? Do you have kind of the same viewpoint on challenges as they come up in our lives, or do you have a different viewpoint on why they happen and what the purpose is?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why they happen anymore. I know when you and I spoke about my accident, I died, came back. My friend died. He didn't. I tried to figure out, like, why did that happen to me? And then I just kind of gave up pursuing the why,
Mm,
and came to said, well, it did. So to your point, and as I got more into coaching and speaking and everything, it's not so much why it happened, but what are you learning from it? How are you growing as you deal through it, as you move through it? So for me now at 58, I know that life is it's just life. We're going to have struggle.
yeah.
Accidents happen, pandemics happen, people do things, people are just going to do what they're going to do and say what they're going to say. And that can hurt us and really set us back if we allow it. And when that hurt shows up, just acknowledge it and say, okay, I understand. It's just a byproduct of this. How do I move through it?
Mm,
So it's not taking the shit out of the show is not so much eliminating the brutal facts that you're in. They're there, the struggle of as you said, of business setbacks, relationship setbacks, any of those things, loss of loved ones. The brutal facts are there. Taking the shit out is just, how do you continue to move through it,
mm,
as gracefully as possible, and knowing that you're going to get on the other side of it. And there's going to be a lot of growth there that's going to support you in the next struggle. So it's not to walk around like, Gulliver's Travel, gloom and doom, we'll never make it.
yeah.
It's not to walk around like the Stoic philosophy says. You're not waking up every day saying, oh my God, what's going to go wrong? What's going to go wrong? What's going to go wrong? Although that that's quite a possibility as we
Mm,
move through life. There's a difference there. And,
mm,
personally, I'm working on that to really get to that point of, all right, things are really great right now. And there's a possibility that they won't be. So let's
mhm,
enjoy them right now. And let's just make sure that you're ready, should those
mhm,
things go off the rails.
mhm. Yeah, and I think one of the philosophies that helps me in my life, and I don't know how much you agree or disagree with this, but I think as we do the work and as we grow from every challenge, it's the reminder that life does ebb and flow, right? It,
Sure.
it definitely does. So there's peaks and valleys, and that's the law of rhythm, right? Universal law. So it's going to
Sure.
happen. But thinking of it more like a staircase, where it's what was once your ceiling becomes your new floor, and it's more of this continual progression. It's like you're always moving in an upward direction because of who you're becoming.
Right.
But in order to do that, we're going to have some things that feel like peaks, and then we're going to have some things that feel like plateaus. We're going to have things that feel like dips, but overall, we're still trending in a positive direction. So that's, again,
Sure.
I think everyone has to make their own decisions about life and what they believe and what they don't. But
Right.
that kind of helps me navigate through. But so I want to hear from you. What are some of the principles? Obviously, someone needs to read the book and really get into the stories. And I think learning from story is so powerful too. That's why I personally enjoy your books so much, because they're
Yeah.
fun and it's just somehow it's easier to digest the information when it's in story form. But
Yeah.
what are some of the top, let's say like 2 to 3 principles that someone can apply to separate that shit from the show, as you put it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the main thing is to expect it. Right.
Mm,
So
mhm,
that's a principle, and that's a mindset that when something happens, I always tell people, listen, do you remember when you went through a haunted house when you were a little kid and you're going through with your friends, and all of a sudden this guy jumps out with a chainsaw with ketchup all over it, and you're like freaked out. Oh my God. And then you go, let's go again. Let's go again. And you go through again, and he jumps out, and you knew he was coming, and you're a little bit scared, but you're like, all right, let's do it again. And then the third time you jump out at him before he jumps out at you.
yeah.
So it's that expecting that we're going to have the struggle. So I think that's really, really important, because so many people will say, holy shit, I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe this happened. I hate, one of the messages we make about in the book, this guy, Nigel, is hate. He hates everything. Right. And we could talk a little bit more about the H words. Sometimes it really represent an attitude of us being stuck. There's a theme in there where I pull in an H word in each chapter with people. So I think number one, to answer your question, is really to expect it. Number two is to realize that there's another side to this. You will move through this. So just to sit or lay in fetal position with tears streaming down your face, as you deal with the brutal facts that you're going through, and take a deep breath and go, there is another side to this. And it's not going to be easy. And there's another side that I can get to. And the other thing I think is really support. That's one of the basic principles of Jackrabbit. So it's coming back to now, who can support me, moving through this. So it's people. And then it's also it's that self-support. And the self-support is two things for me. You and I work a lot on mindset and belief with people, right? So it's that inner narrative. How am I supporting myself in capturing those shitty thoughts and reversing them, right? Not, they're going to show up, not eliminate them, not walk around and say, I never have these negative thoughts. It's how do I catch them? And then what's my strategy to kind of get out of that and reverse them? And then the other self-support, for me and for you, we've had this conversation, is a belief in something bigger. I call it God, but just to kind of surrender and say, hey, I need your help right now. I didn't need it the last 4 months because life was fabulous, and I need it now. So I think there are three things, right? Expect it, know that there's another side, and really pay attention to who's going to help you through it.
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah. The support piece is, that's one that I personally have had to learn to get good at in my life. And I'm still working on, because my conditioning growing up and how I operated for most of my life was like, I can do it on my own. Sure. I don't need anybody's help. And it was really, it was a fear of vulnerability thing. I presented outwardly as very confident, but it was fear of being vulnerable and fear of, people don't want to support me and help me. And so, I'm curious, in your own life, like, is that something that you have to work on? And if so, like, how have you overcome that too, and be willing to reach out and get support?
Yeah, gosh. Well, I mean, I have, I'll just be authentic here. I have one sister and 6 brothers. So we are Catholic, in case you're wondering. And my sister's my best friend. She's the oldest. And then there were 7 boys, and her husband, Bobby, who actually is the last chapter in the book. So each chapter of the book is fictionalized, and it's just kind of, people influenced it. But the last one is really him and my sister. And his proverbial shit show. He's been living with ALS now for 5 years. And the shit show that I talk about just in that period is his daughter's getting married, his only daughter, my niece, Kathleen. And it's that, am I going to be able to walk her down the aisle? So that's the big struggle for him, right? That's the thing he's fighting against. That's the conflict. And he's getting ready, can I walk her? He's working out hard and he still can walk. And then he goes for some treatments in Florida, and he has a cardiac event, and that sets him back. And then COVID hits. So not only can he not go out, can he not have the people come to the house to help him work out and keep his motor skills, then it bumps her wedding back 3 times. So now, as this disease, right, is ravaging his body, how is he going to make it to walk her down the aisle? And it's interesting. Sammy, who is from my first book, Back to Life, she's the main character. So she drops in. She's almost like Elyse dropping in on these 7 people. And in the Bobby chapter, she says, I usually come in and support people in reframing and give them some things to consider and help them to grow. And in this case, Bobby really did that for me. Oh, wow. Because, he's really powerful. So the way you need to deal with this, here's the aha for me. I've struggled with drinking over the years, way too much after the accident. And, vodka was my choice, usually on the rocks with an olive, which was not good. So about 3 years ago, we went to a movie theater to watch It's a Wonderful Life with all of our family. We had 150 people probably. And it's one of Bobby's favorite movies. And I was just not dealing with his illness very well. And it was crushing me. So I just slipped and I turned back. And I mean, I got so drunk that day. It was brutal. Just because I wasn't dealing with his illness, it was just breaking my heart, to see them go through that.
Yeah.
So I default to that, that other side that doesn't serve anything. So then, I wake up the next day and my wife's there. She's wonderful. I'm like, man, this ain't working. So, I still enjoy some beers and wine, but I haven't had a vodka on the rocks in 3 years.
Good for you.
And I'm better for it. So it's just that, that vulnerability. I think there's a difference between knowing, right? We talk a lot about awareness. Knowing for me is when we go around and we look and we know that something's not right in our life, in our relationships or whatever. And those facts are there. Awareness is when that knowing connects to something deeper inside of you. For me, it's spirit.
Yeah.
And it says, I'm not the best version of Danny Bader right now. As a husband, as a father, as a person, as a coach, as an author, as a speaker, whatever. So the knowing is the facts. But see, a lot of people know it. They know it. And sometimes myself too, you're looking for reasons. I just got drunk because this happened or this happened. Well, that's a choice. It doesn't, you wake up with a hangover and the same problem usually. So it really doesn't serve anything. Awareness, and I have to do a talk on a Zoom virtual event this morning or tonight. Awareness for me is deeper. It's when that knowing really gets blended in with your human spirit. And you're like, shit, I got to do some work here.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, it's so true. And as you've been talking, the two words that kept coming in my mind, one is awareness and one is just consciousness. It's that higher level of consciousness and something I continually work on in my own life, where it's like seeing almost your life from that bird's eye view and being able to detach from the situation, which isn't always easy when it feels so gripping, but that's the value of meditation and prayer, right? And kind of that inner spiritual work. But to know that there's a higher order and more going on here than we often see behind the scenes is important. And I want to kind of pivot into this final topic, because I think one of the things, this is why I love talking with you, because of your experience, and you've had different experiences than most people have. And again, if someone wants to hear all about, your own personal journey and near-death experience, they can go listen to episode 47, but you've been to the other side, which most of us listening have not yet. Right. You've been there, you've seen your body from above, you've experienced, you talk about experiencing, and please tell me if I'm not using the right words, but just that profound love that you felt when you were on the other side, and then coming back into your earthly life. And what are some of the perspectives how has your perspective shifted from that event? Because I think that having that bigger perspective is so important when we're going through tough stuff, and knowing like, this is not it, this is not the final destination. And I just want to hear that from you, because I think it's relevant to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, thanks. And you did, the words you and I have talked about, the experience that I had is not describable in our language. So when we seek for words, I appreciate that profound joy, that profound love. I mean, that's really what it was. The perspective I got, and I think it continues to grow really, is, when I came back, my body stopped and there was a part of me that didn't. I knew now that my body's going to stop again. Yours is going to stop. My brother-in-law's is going to stop. And there's a part of us that goes on. So it's our heart and our brain and our lungs, they contribute to making this body go. But for me, there's an absolute belief, certainty that there's a divine energy in all of us. And when that's ready to go back to its source, whatever you may call that, or maybe don't call it anything, I'm just sharing what I think, that's the perspective. So, a lot of times, and sometimes I get frustrated, people get frustrated with me because I'll say, all this shit here really doesn't mean that much. Yeah. And people look and they go, how can you say that? This is our jobs or sickness or illness or loss. And I try to offer to them as best I can is, when you get that this life, this human existence that we're having really doesn't mean a lot, because it's connected to where we're headed next and our energy and our spirit, then it does mean more. It just means more in the right perspective. You know, I don't think a lot of people ponder their energy, their spirit, and what's going to happen when it goes somewhere. You know, a lot of people want to know, hey, what happens when I die? But I don't know that they really are with that every day. Not in a morbid way, but just understanding that as we dance through the difficulties of life and we move through them, it's okay. I mean, that's this human experience, and it's not the end all and be all.
Yeah.
It's just what we're doing now until that next part of our journey.
I love that. And to
Yeah.
your point, I think if I had heard you say that, I don't know, 5 years, maybe 3 years ago, I would have thought, gosh, that's morbid to be thinking about that all the time. But I get what you're saying now in a different way, because I personally have had a lot of spiritual growth this year in particular. And
Sure.
it's, it shifts everything when you keep that awareness throughout the day, because it actually takes the pressure off. I found in my own life to have it all worked out and control everything. And it's like, gosh, you can kind of just relax and be more at ease about things in life. So it's,
and your spirit, I think, Elyse, is the strongest support to move you through these difficulties. So it's as the more you stay connected to spirit and not let the world overwhelm you and keep you just in human form, but also, I'm Danny Bader and you're Elyse in this body. And we have that spirit with us. It's almost like, you know, that spirit's your friend. You know what I mean? It's this part of you that's with this journey. And that's why, you know, I meditate and pray and things, because I believe the spirit resides in stillness. The spirit does not reside in all this craziness of the world and emails and social media and everything else. That's why I believe you really have to. I was just talking with our middle son, Joey, about this, who, you know, grew up Catholic, and his faith he's trying to figure some things out right now. And I said, listen, I'd love for you to go to church because that works for me. And I understand that you're on your own journey. There's something bigger, you know, Joey, and just connect with it in whatever way you can. And he's been doing a lot more meditation and really just loves it. So I think that, you know, having that spirit with us, right? Danny Bader, human, and the spirit of Danny Bader, just playfully having that with you, man, when it hits, you got a good team member right there.
No kidding.
You know, otherwise, you know, you're scrambling for it, you know. And there's in the chapter, the first one, Alexis, her husband, just, you know, he's a knucklehead and, you know, has affairs, and she catches him, and Sammy's trying to move her through it. And at one point she's wearing a silver cross, and Sammy had noticed it a few times and said, oh, you know, I've noticed your silver cross fashion statement. And Alexis says, no, you know, I'm coming back to my faith a little bit. And Sammy said, well, that's probably a good idea. I've seen that help people, you know? So again, whatever it is, you know, Abraham Lincoln had a great quote that I'll use a lot of times. And we know Lincoln, you know, he lost his loved ones. He had the Civil War, he had slavery, he was bankrupt. I mean, that dude he had a lot of shit shows in life.
Yeah.
And he said, I have been driven to my knees so many times by the overwhelming conviction I had nowhere else to go.
Oh, wow.
So you just drop to your knees and say, hey, man, or woman, help, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Chills.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. This is powerful. I'm like, we're going to get you back for round 3.
You know, I love you, and hanging out with you is great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Seeing Jack and Jason there before we started recording, I'm just so happy for you and what you're creating, and how you're really supporting people. They're blessed to have you.
Thank you so much.
As I am.
So much. Thank you. Gosh, this has been amazing. Tell everyone. So 2 final questions for you. First, where can people connect? Where can they get the book? Where can they learn more about you, your coaching, your programs, hiring you as a speaker? Let's start there.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. So I've got 3 of the books up here. Back to Life. I Met Jesus for a Miller Lite. Taking the shit out of the show. And I met Jesus. Some people go, oh my gosh, Jesus, is it real Christian and religious? It says Jesus. And I'm like, yeah, but it says Miller Lite too. They don't go together a lot. So it's just a story. It's actually a story of a running back in the NFL that gets knocked out with concussions, and him and his group of people are struggling in life. So, and then taking the shit out of the show. They could go to Amazon and just search Danny Bader books. Nice. And all of those would come up, and they could kind of take a look and see if it would be something that may serve them, or certainly at the holidays. You know, I get a lot of people that say they buy them and give them away. Yeah. And then the website I have is Danny Bader, DANNYBADER.com. And you can go out there and, see some of my speaking and, take a look and see what the workshops and the keynotes are, what are the topics around the keynotes.
Yeah.
And, get to know me a little bit more and see what you think, so to speak.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I know we've got a mixed audience here listening. And if you're in corporate, if you're a corporate leader, Danny's an incredible speaker, incredible mentor for your team. And then also it's like anyone can grab the books and can benefit from the coaching. And they're such good gifts. I personally love every single one. I've read all of them and I love them. So thank you for that. And final question, and then we will wrap. Just one last, if you had one, you're at the end of your life, right? It's like, it's time for you to fully move on to that next realm. And you've got one opportunity to give a piece of advice to your kids about navigating tough transitions in life. What would it be?
Yeah, it would just be to create more joy, be with people that bring joy to you, and call upon them to help you through the difficult times, and always know and trust that there is the other side of a difficult time, and it will be better again.
Oh, so
just
good.
trust, don't hope. Hope is to want something. Trust is a firm belief in something.
Ooh, that's say that one more time.
Yeah. Hope is to want something. That's the definition. Trust is a firm belief in the reliability of someone or something. That's a whole distinction in chapter 7 that Bobby makes in the book, and he's hoping there's a heaven. And him and Sammy get into a conversation about, the trust there's a heaven.
Oh, that's important. That is a really important distinction. And
sure,
I love that. Yeah. Thank you so much, my friend. This has been a really, really uplifting conversation, a really powerful conversation, as I knew it would be. And just super grateful for you.
Oh, absolutely. I love you and your family and wish you all the best in the holidays and all the best to the audience and your people out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Same to you, my friend. And all right. I really, really know, I would say, I hope, but I know that you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did. And so check out Danny's work, dannybader.com. Follow him on social too. Just really, really great content, uplifting, inspiring, all of it. And be so honored if you tag and share this episode on social with your network to just spread the word about what we're doing here at She Sells and what Danny's doing with his work as well. Thank you so much. I'm grateful for you as a listener, wishing you a beautiful rest of your day. And we will see you next week for our next episode of She Sells Radio. Bye for now.